Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Ray dropping in on you. Normally, this would be a theme morning. Today is normally transformational Tuesdays, but we have something that popped off and it's kind of moving and buzzing right now. And the fact that it's something I'm extremely passionate about, but also the fact that it happened in Houston definitely uh, has it bouncing in my head a little differently and more than it would normally do. And it's always an issue with me. Those of you who follow me know this isn't something that I'm about to talk about that I haven't said a million times. But in case you haven't heard, one third of the Migos, Takeoff, was killed. He's 28 years old, was killed in Houston at a bowling alley. Um, the current reports are that it was surrounding a dice game. Some things happened, some words were exchanged, and somebody pulled a gun and started shooting. He was hit and killed at on scene. Some other people were injured and taken to hospitals and private uh, private vehicles, and we don't know the status health wise, condition wise, of the people who were taken to the hospital in private vehicles. I'm pretty sure that information will eventually come to the surface. Um, those of you who know me and know my love for hip hop know that for years I have given the Migos the business, along with a bunch of other rappers and everything like that. But that's in the vein of just my passion for a certain thing. But when it comes down to Black lives, Black male lives, being tossed away and tossed away and tossed away, I've been very clear about that. Number one is I don't wish death on anybody. Sometimes people put themselves in situations that lead to things. But what I do understand is that we have invited a culture by way of the music industry that has exacerbated it. Don't get me wrong. Let me be very clear here. I'm 55 years old. I was born in the late 60s, grew up in the 70s as a kid, and came into myself as a teenager in the 80s. And I can tell you, I've seen a person get killed at a dice game. I grew up in the hood. The place where I grew up, the nickname was Killer Park. Um, it wasn't an easy place, but I guarantee you the rate of death that I'm seeing in the communities in Houston alone, nothing compared to what I'm seeing now. It has been exacerbated, and there are a number of different factors. You've got to factor in um, the increase in population. We almost doubled the population since I was a kid. Um, Poverty, the exacerbation of poverty. But you also have to take into consideration that while we are blasting Kanye West for some of the things he said, again, I'm not a champion for Kanye. Kanye has said some stuff that I don't agree with, but he has put some points out that we need to be addressing. Um, but we're blasting him. We're talking about how stupid Kyrie Irving is, but nobody is sitting up talking about this stuff that's being piped into our communities, and then our children are consuming it. And this isn't to me about as much about Takeoff as a lot of people are going to make it. My heart goes out to his family. I send my condolences. That's another Black life lost. But see, I see it every day where nobody's going to know the name of the person it happened to. Nobody's going to see it plastered all over the internet. Nobody's going to see everybody talking about it. And that's this big memorial. It's going to be kept within a short, a small, confined group of people who are intensively impacted by it, normally family, friends, and loved ones. But also, here's the problem that I have, and I've been talking about this for I don't know how long. This is a microcosm of a much bigger issue. And if we don't see the impact of music, and we don't see the impact that these young men who are on these platforms, who have this much exposure, if you don't understand the impact that it has on the average youth that relate to them, then that's a part of the problem too. I've been talking about it. I've been teaching about it. I've been lecturing. I've written about it in multiple books about the importance of understanding how this culture is permeating our community and poisoning it. Let me tell you something. This narrative now, it's actually going to have more of a negative impact than a positive impact. Not just because kids are going to be going, oh man, you know, somebody they probably idolize and look at. And you got to understand, in this game, at 28, he's damn near OG to a lot of these cats that don't really know the industry and don't really know the history. He's been in the game since, I think they started their group in 2008 or something like that. They hit their first big hit at 2013 and then just went from there. But here's the thing. When you see something like that, what you get is that's what we do, because that's going to be plastered. And the same media that's blasting Kanye for his statements is not going to frame it the way it needs to be framed in order for people to gain an understanding of what's going on. It's going to be framed as that they go again. And then we'll jump right on in with it. Man, this don't make no sense without sitting up and understanding. If we don't take control of our own destiny, if we don't take control of writing the narrative, we don't take control of properly developing and socializing our young Black males, this is just the beginning of what it's going to look like. You got to understand, the same people who pulled a gun and start popping off at the bowling alley last night. This is a bowling alley. This is a bowling alley that you have notable celebrities at. So I can guarantee you it was packed. Multiple people hit. Somebody pulled that gun out and started blasting without a second thought. And you don't think that that came from something. You don't think that that emerged from something. That is a lack of value for Black life. And in order to have a lack of value for Black life, there usually is a lack of value for self. It's all about what I see, what I can get. And there is literally an entire industry that's promoting hyperviolence, promoting misogyny, promoting financial irresponsibility, promoting excessive drug use, recreational drug use, and all kind of other negative behavior that does not serve the collective well. Well, you got to understand, the person that pulled that gun and shot this kid earlier this morning, I think they said it happened around 2 a.m. That kid pulled that gun. He's going to be dating somebody's daughter, already dating somebody's daughter. If they haven't caught him yet, he's on the run. But the kids that are pulling these triggers, they aren't just hanging around dudes. They're getting with our daughters. And that penchant for violence, that proclivity for violence, that almost praise for a violent mentality, the more violent you are, the more you worship and praise, that's a problem. I'm not saying that shouldn't be something within a man that says, if I need to go here, I go here. But things that trigger us and take us there is the problem. We are naturally built to be more aggressive. We are physically built to be more violent, but it is for the purpose of defending those things that matter to us. We are stronger than our women because we were built to defend and protect them. There's a natural aggression that comes along with testosterone. As the testosterone levels in young males increase, their natural aggression increases. Why? They are developing physically the capacity to defend and exude aggression when necessary. The aggression that comes with the emotional and mental aggression that comes along with testosterone is to ensure that when it's necessary, you can. But the problem is, if you don't properly racially socialize young Black males, when they start to reach that era, they're going to experience physical, emotional, psychological changes that they cannot explain. If there aren't men there to model it for them, to talk them through it, to help them get there, to develop them, then here is the problem, is they start to search for what that means. They start to search for what's this thing I'm feeling? And the problem is for black males, and I've been trying to get you guys to understand that the problem for black males is white males have somewhere that they are going to have set up for them. Arab males, Latino males, um, all of them are going to have a place set up for them where they can carry out this natural need to have a place in a position of power, something that they control. It's going to be set up for them. It's going to be an entire environment. Hell, white people are born into it. This is a white racial caste system. They're born into it. Blacks, you don't just have to socialize your kids, you have to racially socialize them, because socializing them is about telling them they're smart, telling them they're capable, telling them what the world will expect of them, telling them what they shouldn't do. All of those things, telling them they're beautiful, telling them they're handsome, telling them they're smart. Then you have to racially socialize them, because if you don't racially socialize them, they'll go out in the world and everything you taught them, the world will tell them that was a lie. It's different. And if they don't have it ingrained in them that this is what they have to expect as a black person, it will throw them off. If you telling them they're beautiful is great, but if you don't tell them, you're going to go out there and people are going to tell you you should look like this. People are going to tell you should behave like this. People are going to tell you should wear your hair like this. People are going to tell you just because you are a black male, you are naturally violent, and you're going to have to be able to understand you are built to win. And you're going to have to do that to them. But if you don't develop them and show them, if black boys don't understand that they have a place and a responsibility in this world that is so necessary, then they don't see their value. In a world that doesn't want to acknowledge them, in a world that doesn't want to accept them, in dealing with the academic system, I've written 2 books that focuses on that: Academic Apartheid and The Miseducation of Black Youth in America. And I specifically laid out how as early as 5 years old, our young black males are put into an institutional environment where they're not accepted, where they're not liked, where they're feared. You put them in an environment where the average teacher is white, middle-aged female, and she doesn't know what to do with him. She doesn't know how to act. So she's already looking for a way to get him out of class. How do they get most of them out of the class? They refer them for special education assessments. They're either ADHD, they're either oppositionally defiant, they either low IQ or learning disabled. And they get them off into those classes, get them out of their class, and then they label them, and then they ostracize them and alienate them. And early in the educational system, they're already feeling they're not accepted, they're not wanted. And if you don't understand this, you don't understand the school to prison pipeline. It is literally setting them up. By the time they're in the 6th grade, they're already saying, man, I can't do this. By the time they're in the 9th grade, they're already talking about leaving. And we understand that dropping out increases their chance of incarceration by 5 times. That's what we've been doing all this time. I've been telling you about Black Man Lead. All the time I've been telling about the programs that we work with young black males, is that you got to understand it's not just simply what you get to see at the end. That's what the media shows you. The media isn't showing you how they got there. The media isn't showing you how constantly this narrative is being pumped into them. Now, you got to understand that the music is available to everybody, but everybody's situation isn't different. Everybody isn't descending from the same background. Everybody isn't fighting the same giants. If a white kid listens to it and it's there and it still has an impact, but they're coming from a totally different place that it takes a while to move them to a point to where they're talking about being violent at the level. These kids are brought up in it, see it over and over, then want to repeat it and find out that what they consider to be respect, which is actually fear, is the best way to get it is to be the most violent. That's the only time they feel powerful, is when somebody's afraid of them. The problem is you can't rear a strong family if your family is afraid of you, if the people around you are afraid of you. I've seen so many cats murdered because people were afraid of them. We are losing, and we're losing at a rapid rate. And my problem with it is how we're not tired of it yet, how we haven't said enough is enough. This is so much bigger than this. He is just the next rapper in a line of rappers over the last 5 years that have died senseless deaths behind BS that's hyped up and behind a culture that the music industry is flooding our communities with that doesn't serve our community. Everybody's eating off of our community. Everybody's eating off of our talents. Everybody's eating off of our inability and lack of willingness to pursue an understanding of how things work at a level that allows us to move fluently towards true empowerment. We want to talk. We want to debate. We want to prove we know more than the next person knows. We don't want to sit down and put our minds together and say, this needs to happen now. Every other group has some form of a rite of passage that socializes their males, and most of them females, into the adults that they need to be in order to be pro-social and productive for themselves, for their families, for their communities, and for the race. We're the only ones who don't. We are sitting up and not acknowledging the fact that we have 1.5 million of our men already missing. 1.2 of those are in prison. The only place where the black man is the majority. Now, we make up a very small portion of the free population, of the general population, but we make up almost 40%, or close to 40, maybe 40 by now. Last time I checked it, it was around 38, 39. And so, and white men, who are definitely the majority male population in America, make up less of the population in prison, 37, 36, 35, 36, somewhere up in there. And the studies and empirical data says they are more inclined to break laws. They're more inclined to have drugs on them. Yet, here we are. Why? We are easy targets. We lack the power. We lack the financial fluidity to defend ourselves when we do get caught up in the system. How many times have you, in the last 2 years, seen a story of a black man who has spent the majority of his life in prison being released because new evidence has come forth to show that he wasn't guilty in the first place, couldn't defend himself? How many times have you seen someone actually sign for time and find out that they didn't do it, but they were intimidated into signing for the time? And once you sign for the time, now you're in the system, now you're convicted, now you're part of a process. And the chance of you recidivating after you get out is higher. Even if you didn't go in criminal minded, you're around an institutionalized mindset where everybody's talking about what they did, how they did it, and whatever. And there's a problem for that. And so then what happens? You get out, and now nobody wants to touch you. You can't get an apartment in your name. There are some places that will hire you, but a lot of them are not going to touch you. And you're already looked at different, viewed different in your own community. By your own people, you looked at differently. So then you start to look for a place you're accepted. You start to look for a place where maybe you can get on. You start to look for a place of how you're going to get by. And what do? You end up doing something that sends you back. Now that's two. And it's becoming more and more inculcated and ingrained into your psyche that this is who you is. This is who you are. No, it's not who you are. It's what you have been sculpted and engineered into because people failed you. Now, at some point, it's your responsibility. At some point, it's your responsibility to sit up and say, you know what? It's on me to do something different with my life. I know for me, I was the dichotomy. I was this enigma to people in my community. That was a side of me that people knew, okay, this dude's throw it off. He'll go off in a minute. As long as you don't mess with him, he's not going to mess with you. Then that was the people. You couldn't ask my teachers anything, and they would say, oh, he's at school. I was a different person because I saw school as the way out, whether it was sports or whether it was my brain. It gave me a place to think about how to get out. But I understood what was in that community. But you know what changed me? My firstborn. I realized at that moment, I was a young father, a teen. I realized at that moment, hey, this kid can't live without me. This kid can't grow up without me. It ain't just about me anymore. Me trying to prove somebody how tough I am is not going to feed my baby. It's not going to put Pampers on my baby. It's not going to give my baby the love that only a dad can give. So no, Something's got to change. I've got to get a control over my temper. But for me, there are hundreds that can't figure that out, that don't get it, because they're constantly being flooded with the idea that there's some intrinsic value in being violent. Sometimes violence is a necessity, and Black men need to understand that. We need to point that violence at the right ones, and that's not ourselves. We are going to have to develop a mindset of understanding that when that happens, it's not just going to be Takeoff's family, the Migos, and they're all kin, one uncle and two cousins. But they're all kin. But it's not going to just impact them. There are kids sitting around. There are kids sitting around and actually looking at this and thinking this is the way to go. And this is the problem, is that you get the music, then you get the behavior, then they get the news reports, and there's a cycle of this narrative being pushed. And that narrative is programming the minds of our babies, of our children. And this is what they're getting. And they're starting young. And we have nothing in place to sit up and straighten that out. And one of my brothers made a point. Fear will drive violence too. That's what, like I've told you, I've seen some brothers that everybody in the hood feared. First time somebody got caught them slipping, they out of here. Why? Because the moment you walk in a room, you got people wired and on edge. Eventually, somebody's going to get enough courage in a moment, or have enough fear pushing them, that they feel like if they don't get you, you're going to get them. Anybody can pull a trigger. It doesn't take courage to pull a trigger. It doesn't take courage to take a weapon and aim it at somebody and snap it and take a life. It takes courage to build strong boys that become strong men. It takes courage to sit up and teach them how to work with one another and care about one another, to see the value in one another. I'm telling you something that happens when you socialize a kid. Number one is he starts to see the value in himself. He understands he has a place in this world. He understands he has a responsibility, not just to himself, but to his family, to his community, and to his race. The moment that he realizes that he has importance, that he has value among the beyond the bag. The bag ain't the only thing. And being the biggest, baddest person on the block ain't the only thing. He starts to realize that I have value. In my youth, I have value. In my middle age, I have value. And even in my older years, I have value. I have something to live for. Guess what happens now? When he looks at someone that looks like him, he sees they have value too. But anybody that's willing to step up and start blasting already understands that people might start blasting back. It tells you that they don't really have a high value for their lives. It tells you that if I gotta go, and I was that person, man, if I gotta go, I'm going out blasting. The problem is everybody can blast. The baddest person ain't the one always standing. Sometimes it's the luckiest. And the thing is, if all of your anger and your volatility are aimed at the people who are going through the same thing you're going through, somebody missed their mark. Somebody didn't get the assignment. Somebody failed you. You should understand that when something's moving against you, you slow down long enough to figure out what it is moving against you, who it is moving against you, how is it moving against you, what do you need to do in order to ensure that what is moving against you and hostile towards you is neutralized. You can't neutralize hostility with violence between you and your brothers if they're not the ones that created it. Pay attention to the narratives. Pay attention to how things are going. Pay attention to what's going on. I've been saying it for years. We are missing the mark because we are allowing the system to socialize our children. And the system is socializing our children into violence, into criminality, into self-hatred, into irresponsibility, consumerism, individuality. And that's on us. We need to get these kids long before they get to a point like I keep telling people murderers and all of that aren't born. A psychopath, one exception, 1% of the population. Everybody else is a product of their environment, a product of think, a product of narratives and paradigms that are built around them that create the lens through which they see life. And whatever that paradigm is, whatever is acceptable, whatever isn't, whatever the grand scheme of that paradigm is, will be the driving force in that person's life. If the paradigm is respect and dominance, and there's no other way to get it than through violence, they will be violent. If they feel they're defending something that's important to them, whether it's important to the rest of the world or not, they will defend it with their life, even if it makes absolutely no sense to the grand to the masses. We have to understand we have the capacity and the ability and the opportunity to shape the lives of these young men before they ever get to the point where testosterone is driving their decisions. And that's on us. That's our fault. That's our failure. We have failed in so many ways. Every time I hear, and for people saying, they just tripping because it's one to know, you need to go back and check and see how many times this conversation has been brought up just on this channel alone. Out of the 2,000 videos on this channel, I guarantee you at least 600-700 of them are on Black men, Black male violence. Why? Because I spent so much time trying to stop it. I've been brought into cities with the program. The programs work. There's a reason why all of the groups have rite of passages, because it helps to stabilize their male community. It helps to focus and aim the energy of the males in their race and their population. We have no aim. Everybody is fighting for themselves. We're competing against one another. That's another problem we have as men, Black men. We're constantly trying to prove we're better than him because we think that's the only way to get the prize. Whether it's the bag, whether it's the girl, whatever it is, instead of just being the best of ourselves and coming together and saying united, we are immensely powerful. We're too busy trying to prove I'm that dude. I'm that dude. Even in Black consciousness, everybody's beefing with everybody, trying to prove they're smart. That's why you never see me taking shots at nobody. I'm not here to beef with my brothers. I get nothing out of it. I'm not here to try to prove I'm anything but a man that loves his people, that has invested 30 plus years in the studying and understanding his people and understanding what's going on and creating programs and solutions to those situations. That's it. I don't care if it's my name is on it or not. Somebody wants to take it and do something with it beyond what I can. If it helps my people, I'm fine with that. I don't need my name on it. I need my people to stop killing each other. The problem is most people don't even see why I'm this passionate about it, because we've been programmed not to care. It is what it is. That bothers me. That really and truly bothers me, that we are so disconnected that Black death doesn't even shake us anymore. Whether it's a Black male, a Black woman, a Black baby, all I know is I'm tired of seeing senseless murders where most of it can be mitigated. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I grew up, I saw violence. But again, I could tell you that it was socially engineered. It was pushed in. It was a result of poverty and a lack of direction and a lack of opportunity, pushing everything in. People are going to fight for what it is. Everybody's going to eat. Nobody's going to willfully starve. Now, what people are willing to do, and that's something we've got to get an understanding of as well. We are financially inept at a level that we create problems for ourselves. Most men have a drive to be able to provide, no matter what they're saying about black men. The average black man wants to provide. Now, how he goes about it is the issue. But here's the thing: there are only several ways that you can provide for yourself, for your family, and for those that you care about. You have income that comes from either a job or a business. So who's the most underemployed? Black men. Who's the most unemployed? Black men. Okay, so then we need to talk about business ownership, places where we control the narrative of how we're going to generate revenue. That's a part of socialization as well. One of the 11 principles of manhood in Black Men Lead is black men need to own their own business. You can't control something when you're seeking help and permission from someone who doesn't have the same interest as you. Period and point blank. Okay. So the first one is income. The second one is some sort of subsidized supplemental income or assistance. So government assistance, nonprofit association assistance, whatever. Now, if you don't qualify in those two categories, one way or another, the only other is crime. Selling drugs, stealing, robbing, to the more intricate and complex things like identity theft and whatever else, fraud and all this other stuff. Those are the three options. They'll sit up and tell you there are three options. You're going to figure it out on option number one, which is where we should have all our men at. Option number one, create an income for yourself. If you or create a highly desired skill set so that people will hire you, but more importantly, seek for ways to create your own space because you won't ever fire yourself. Okay. But if we don't, and most men are not going to qualify for those subsidies. It wasn't created for us. Now, there are some men that are able to get certain things, but you're not going to feed your family with it. You're not going to grow and build anything with it. And you're probably going to lose the respect of the woman in your life or the women around you by seeking it. It's by design. It's by design. Cripple a man, make him useless, turn him into a commodity. One of the worst things that happened is the black man was turned into a commodity. It became solely about what you can pay for. We lost sight of the importance of spiritual covering, physical covering, being able to be the source of identity for the progeny. Mothers are unbelievable teachers. They're unparalleled nurturers. But you know where the kid gets the predominance of the identity from? Dad. A mother can tell a daughter 100 times she's beautiful. Dad says it once. It's done. There's a reason for that. See, we don't see the priesthood in our men anymore. We don't see the prophet in our men anymore. The ability to speak into and over the lives of his family. We don't see that. Can you pay all the bills? And yes, you should be a provider. But see, that isn't even the first of the 5 P's. Provider is second. Protector is first. See, we lost sight of that, though. You got to be a protector, then you got to be a provider, then you got to be a promoter. Like, what the hell is promoting? Promoter is when you sit up and you big up your family. You don't spend time talking about what you do in your family. You spend talking about how awesome your kids are, how exceptional your wife is. You talk about that. You put them up. You lift them up. You speak them up. So not only they hear it, but everyone around them knows how much of a regard you have for them. Because here's the thing. When people understand you have a high regard for something, they know what you're willing to do to protect it. We miss all the dynamics. See, all of that was cast aside, and see, it all came down to now. What can you do as far as covering the bills? What can you buy me? What can you put and all that? And again, you miss the fact that he's supposed to be a priest. He's supposed to be the direct line and connection to the divine source for the family. It doesn't mean that the woman doesn't pray. The woman is probably going to pray more frequently, but the divine connection comes from the man. It is the man who is the priest in the home, and men done lost that. And it doesn't matter what faith you're talking about. I'm not speaking from any particular faith. I'm talking about a divine connection. I'm talking about a willingness to step in and be that type of covering in your home. Conversations you're having with God, your wife never knows about. We lost all that. But here, guess what happens if they can't own a business or get a job and they can't get subsidies? Nobody's going to sit around and say, well, we're just going to sit here and starve. No, you're going to get out there. And then what's going to happen eventually? When baby starts to see, well, at least he's paying the bills. At least he's feeding us. At least we got a roof over our head. She starts to co-sign it. And at some point, she starts to encourage it. Then it becomes a generational family business. And now you got father and son. And I've seen a situation where there was grandfather, son, and grandson in prison simultaneously. The system worked exactly the way it was meant to. Someone asked what happens when boys are already in the system. We have a program to reduce recidivism, but we have to reach out to them. We can't throw our boys away. We can't afford to throw our black men away. We've got to find a way to reach them, and there's a way to reach them, but it takes consistency. It takes a willingness to show. I'm going to tell you, as hard as our men want to be, and as hard as the image we want to present, I'm going to tell you something. Some of the easiest people to reach are people incarcerated. Because incarcerated, you find out who your real friends are. You find out who your real family are. You find out that everything that they told you was a lie. But you need somebody to come along and say, look, it's not over. You haven't ruined your life, no matter what they're trying to convince you of. I've seen people with life change things on the outside. Writing books, writing articles that they're getting other people to publish, creating programs where they're able to actually leave the prison and go speak. So you haven't ever ruined your life. You changed the trajectory, and you're going to have to make adjustments, but you can now understand that there's something different for you to do outside, be a puppet of destruction for the system. But back to the beginning, and then I'm going to put this down because, again, if you haven't followed me, then you don't know. If you followed me, this isn't new. I've been talking about it. I've been asking for support. I've been telling you it's going to get worse. And to you, it's just one more rapper. To me, it's just a name that people recognize that shows what I deal with every day. So yes, that's why I'm upset. And the fact that it happened in Houston, which is a whole nother issue. Houston is popping off right now. I grew up, and there have been violent sectors in Houston long before I was born that you just understood. You're in this space right now. Be careful. You could get hurt. There's always been that. Now there is no safe space. It's people getting popped at restaurants in the Galleria. The Galleria is the upscale area in Houston. Well, it was. You walk in the Galleria now, and it's like it's a takeover. And it's crazy. But here's the thing. Go back and look at my videos. Go back and read my books. Go back to the Odyssey Project site and read some of the articles. Nothing I haven't predicted years ago. I told you, if we don't take control of the minds of our children, they're going to burn the village down. I told you that. I told you. If we don't take care of them, if we don't create the right mindset, they are going to burn the village down. There's an old African proverb that says that if the child can't feel the love of the village, he'll burn it down and feel its warmth. Something to that nature. Once again, my condolences go out to the family of this young man. Just doing what young black men and do his age do in that situation. And we have no emotional management, no problem resolution skills, no way to de-escalate conflict because we haven't been taught it. Our kids now go from 0 to 100. It ain't even, it went from exchanging fists, who wins, who loses, you dap later, or even if not, you come back the next day and you play ball on the court or do whatever you was doing like it never happened. Then it went from, okay, if I lose, my ego can't take it, I'm coming back and I'm shooting up the park. So you had to at least lose the fight before you start shooting. Now we don't even fight. It goes straight from, you done pissed me off, I'm gonna pop a cap. I'm bussing. The moment I get in my feelings, I'm bussing. The problem with that is not just that it's killing our sons. That's the same clown that's gonna marry your daughter or put a baby in your daughter. That's gonna perpetuate an environment of violence. We got to do better. We have to do better. All this talk about what Kanye and Kyrie is doing, and none of that stuff has had any negative true impact. Outside of he hurt some people's feelings when Kanye said, sounds like a choice to me. Hurt some people's feelings. The other stuff isn't even our fight. And we're celebrating how they are being managed and handled. I'm not taking one side or another right here. What I'm talking about is there's a bigger focus we should be looking on, and we should be looking at, and we should be examining. And that's the things that are having a direct negative impact on us. What we're seeing right now is what other groups with power and unity do when somebody ticks them off. They don't go tear up everything and burn everything down. They start economically destroying stuff. Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. And we can say that this is all a part of Kanye's plan and all that. And it may very well be. I'm not trying to sit up and determine whether he's a genius or an idiot. That side of the argument isn't where I'm at right now. But what I can tell you is something that was said is, Bob, what's flooding your community? When you look at the history of hip hop, and you understand that rap comes out of the history of hip hop. Hip hop is a culture. It's not just the music. It's an entire culture. It was birthed out of the destruction of groups like the Black Nationalist Party and the Black Panther Party. It was birthed as a vein of empowerment and education. It was birthed as an independence, as a sense of identity and source. It was birthed to be so much more than entertainment. At first, it wasn't entertainment. It was a way of communicating. We had our own language. It was so much more. And we allowed it to be infiltrated. We allowed it to be infiltrated. And then we look up now and we see that that music that was literally designed, it was a part of a design to empower us, is the very thing being used to destroy us. And on top of that, it's enriching other groups while destroying us. And we can't put our hand on the hemorrhaging. We can't find and locate the hemorrhaging because we've allowed it to get so far away from us. And that the idea of the gargantuan task of reclaiming something is so huge that we've just forgot, whatever. And we've surrendered so much in that vein, not just hip hop, but so many other things we've surrendered and given up without a fight. and we don't see the long-reaching ramifications of it. There is this universal law of cause and effect. Everything that happens originated from something, and everything you do will have a consequence or a result or an outcome. We don't control enough of the causes. We react to the outcomes. And this is what we get: powerlessness, devastation, trauma, and a consistent spot at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, and political impotence. And we are frustrated. And it's playing out in the worst way that it possibly can. We are literally imploding as a race. And the answers are there, but people don't want to take decisive and committed action. People don't want to invest. People don't want to be a part of it. They just want to sit back and hope that it doesn't hit them. They want to hope that it doesn't land on their doorstep. And then when it does, they want the world to rally around them. But the world is the same place that you were when you saw it happening and you didn't do it. Now it's at your doorstep and you want the world to respond differently. You got to start responding before it lands on your doorstep. It has to matter to you. The spilling of Black blood has to matter. Or we've got a problem far beyond what any of us even imagine. This is not how I planned on starting my morning, but I mean, I got hit with this one. I mean, I'm just up, did my prayer and meditation. Luckily, I do that stuff before I even check my devices. But just finished it, and bam, that is the first thing is this. And so I sat down and I thought about it for a while. But we've got work to do. It's that simple. We've got work to do. On that note, look, I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. For those of you who believe in the work I do, show some love and support. You can see how you can give either through the link or through Cash App to support the work. But regardless, we've got problems. And I guess what bothers me the most is their answers and solutions. We're just not vigorously pursuing them. And on that note, look, I'm out of here. I don't know if he's still on here now, but I see Mitchell Coleman from Your Hood News Network out of Wilmington, Delaware here. And if anybody can talk about violence, it would definitely be him, because Wilmington was at one point the murder capital. That little small city, blacks were dying crazy up there the last time I got called about it. And that wasn't that long ago. We've got to get behind things that matter. We've got to understand that it's our responsibility to care about us, to do for us, to advance us. We've got to be concerned. I don't see how we sit up and say the children of the future and leave so much of their success and future up to others. I don't get that. But that's so much I don't get. Well, anyway, that's it. I'm out of here. I thank you guys who took the time to stop in this morning on a weekday to spend time with me. You guys have an unbelievable day.